There is a very strange moment in each person's life, a moment that is not loud, not announced, with no clear signs from the outside, yet strong enough to shake your entire inner world. It is the moment you begin to realize that, for so many years, you have lived for too many people, but have never truly lived for yourself. You wake up every day, do what needs to be done, fulfill the roles that life assigns you: a good child, a good friend, a reliable colleague. You try not to disappoint anyone. You learn to stay silent when necessary, to endure when you should, and to smile even when you are exhausted inside. Gradually, you become a proper version in the eyes of others, but more and more unfamiliar to yourself. There are very late nights when everything becomes quiet that you finally dare to face the emptiness silently growing inside you. A gentle yet haunting question begins to appear. Am I living, or just existing to please others? You are not weak. You are not wrong. You have simply become used to putting yourself last. Society has never taught us how to choose ourselves. On the contrary, it praises sacrifice, glorifies endurance, and makes us believe that the more we give, the more we neglect ourselves, the more worthy we become. And so you grow up believing that loving others is the most important thing, so much so that you forget that you, too, need to be loved, to be heard, to be understood by yourself. You begin to get used to apologizing for your own emotions. You feel guilty when you rest. You blame yourself for not being perfect enough. You force yourself to be strong, to persevere, to be okay even when you are breaking inside. You become someone who is always there for others, but absent in your own life. And then one day, you suddenly realize, the more you try to be everything for everyone, the more you lose yourself. It is not a sudden loss. It happens very slowly, little by little. A dream you give up, an emotion you suppress, a time you say okay, and you really want to say no. Those small things, accumulating over time, turn you into someone you no longer recognize. But it is also within that exhaustion that something begins to awaken. Not rebellion, not selfishness, but a very quiet yet very real voice rising from deep within. It's time. It is time for you to stop chasing validation. It is time for you to stop trying to become the version others expect. It is time for you to return and ask yourself a simple but powerful question. If I truly mattered to myself, how would I live differently? The moment you dare to face that question is the moment everything begins to change. Not because the outside world suddenly becomes easier, not because all problems disappear, but because for the first time you begin to stand on your own side. You begin to listen to what you truly feel, no longer denying or avoiding it. You allow yourself to be tired without guilt. You learn to say no without fear of judgment. You begin to set boundaries, not to push others away, but to preserve your own peace. You realize that choosing yourself is not turning your back on the world, but stopping turning your back on yourself. It is not an easy journey. There will be moments of doubt. There will be people who do not understand. There will be relationships that change, but deep inside, you know, this is the first time you are truly living. Because the truth is, no one can live your life for you. No one can feel this life for you. And if you continue to neglect yourself, then no matter how much you achieve on the outside, inside you will always feel that something important is missing. When you begin to choose yourself not in a selfish way, but with awareness, and self-respect, you are laying the foundation for a more authentic life, a life no longer driven by the fear of rejection, but guided by self-understanding, a life where you do not need to prove your worth, because you can already see it clearly within yourself. And from that moment, everything truly begins to change. Nor is it a loud awakening moment that suddenly makes everything clear. It begins very quietly, from a kind of exhaustion you cannot name, a fatigue that does not come from work or external pressure, but from having lived too long in a version that is not truly you. You still do everything right, still fulfill your responsibilities, still behave kindly, but deep inside there is a growing emptiness, as if you are present in your own life, yet not truly living in it. You begin to realize that many things you once believed were effort were actually just adaptations to be accepted. You adjust the way you speak so as not to make anyone uncomfortable. You suppress your emotions to maintain harmony. You give up your true desires just to keep an image of being okay in the eyes of others. And then you call all of that maturity. But the further you go, the more lost you feel, because maturity should not be a process of trading away yourself in exchange for approval. There are times when you stand among many people yet feel a strange loneliness, not because no one is there, but because no one truly knows who you are. And more frighteningly, you yourself begin to no longer be sure who you are anymore. It is within that emptiness that a quiet shift begins to take place. You start observing yourself more, not to judge but to understand. You notice the moments when your heart feels heavy, the times you say okay, when inside you want to refuse, the smiles that no longer carry light. You realize that your body and emotions have always been honest. It is just that you have grown used to ignoring them. And then, for the first time, you try to pause instead of reacting as you used to. You ask yourself a very simple question that holds the power to change everything. Is this truly right for me? That question opens a door. From there, you begin to change, not through big steps, but through very small choices. A time you say no when you truly do not want to. A time you choose to be alone instead of forcing yourself to fit into places that exhaust you. A time you allow yourself to rest without feeling guilty. Those small things do not create noise. No one notices, but inside you, something is slowly coming back to life. You begin to feel lighter, not because life becomes easier, but because you are no longer carrying burdens that do not belong to you. But this journey is not always comfortable. When you begin to change, those who are used to your old version may not understand. They may think you are being selfish, that you have changed, that you are no longer the same. Those words can make you waver, make you doubt yourself, make you want to return to the old way of living just to keep a familiar sense of peace. But if you are brave enough to continue, you will gradually realize that relationships that only exist when you have to shrink yourself were never truly real connections. When you begin to choose yourself, you do not lose what truly belongs to you. You only let go of what was never aligned. And in that process, your life begins to change in subtle yet profound ways. You are no longer pulled into meaningless things, no longer feel the need to prove your worth, no longer seek validation from the outside to feel complete. Instead, you begin to build a new relationship with yourself, one based on listening, understanding, and respect. You learn to sit with your emotions without rushing to escape. Learn to accept your imperfect parts without constant criticism. Learn to treat yourself with gentleness instead of pressure. And the beautiful thing is that when you begin to treat yourself that way, the world around you also starts to change. You attract more aligned people, create more genuine connections, and do things that bring deeper meaning. Life is no longer a series of obligations to complete, but becomes a journey to experience, to feel, and to truly live. You no longer chase life in desperation, but begin to walk with it in awareness. And then you realize that happiness has never been something waiting ahead for you to achieve. It has always been there, in the very moment you return to yourself. Choosing yourself is not a final destination, but a process repeated every day. In each small choice, it is when you choose rest instead of pushing yourself to exhaustion. Choose authenticity instead of artificial comfort. Choose peace instead of trying to prove. And each such choice, no matter how small, is quietly rebuilding your life from within. A life no longer driven by fear or the expectations of others, but guided by understanding and respect for yourself. That is when everything does not just change, but begins to transform deeply from the roots. There is a truth that very few people dare to face. You can live an entire life being busy, contributing, sacrificing, and still have never truly lived, not because you lack opportunities, but because you have become used to placing yourself behind everything else. You prioritize your family's expectations, society's judgments, other people's emotions, to the point that, little by little, your inner voice becomes smaller, then silently disappears without you even noticing. You do not realize it immediately. Because your life still looks fine, you still have responsibilities, still have relationships, still moving forward, but something is no longer right, a vague feeling that you are going very far, but you do not know where you are going, and the more you try to move faster, the emptier you feel. That is when you begin to understand that the problem is not that you have not tried hard enough, but that you have been trying in the wrong direction. You have been trying to become the person others need instead of becoming the person you need. This realization is not comfortable. It forces you to look back at many things, your choices, your relationships, the sacrifices you once believed were right. It makes you realize that there were times you said yes just to avoid conflict, times you stayed silent just to keep the peace, times you forced yourself to be strong simply because you thought you had no other choice. All of those things, little by little, have taken you away from yourself. But within that realization, a door begins to open. You begin to ask yourself, if I did not have to please anyone, how would I live? That question does not have an immediate answer because you have been used to listening to the outside world for so long that you have forgotten how to listen to yourself. But what matters is that you have started asking. And when you start asking, you begin to awaken. You begin to notice very small things. The moments you feel lighter when you are alone, the times you feel exhausted after trying to please someone, the things you do out of obligation, no longer coming from desire. Those signals which you used to ignore, you now begin to see more clearly. And then you try to change, not by changing your life overnight, but by changing how you respond to yourself. You allow yourself to be honest. You admit when you are not okay. You do not force yourself to always be positive. You begin to say no to things that drain you, even though it feels uncomfortable at first. You practice setting boundaries, not to separate yourself from the world, but to protect your own energy. These steps are not big, but they require a very deep kind of courage, because for the first time, you are going against everything you have been used to for so many years. There will be times when you feel lost, when you are no longer the easygoing version who pleases others. Some relationships will change. There will be people who do not understand, people who leave, and people who try to pull you back to who you used to be. That may make you doubt, am I doing something wrong? But if you are patient enough to keep going, you will realize that what leaves is not a loss, but a release, because the things that only exist when you have to trade yourself away were never truly yours. Gradually, you begin to feel a very different kind of peace, not the kind that comes from everything around you being perfect, but the kind that comes from no longer resisting yourself. You no longer have to perform, no longer have to strain to become someone else. You begin to live more truthfully, even though that sometimes makes you more vulnerable. But that very authenticity brings you a new kind of strength. You no longer depend on external validation to feel enough. You no longer need to prove your worth through achievements or sacrifice. You begin to understand that your value does not come from what you do for others, but from your ability to fully be yourself. And when you live that way, the world around you also begins to change. You attract people who do not need you to pretend. Relationships become deeper because they are built on truth, not adaptation. You do things that carry more meaning, not because you have to, but because you truly want to. Life is no longer a series of heavy obligations, but becomes a flow that you can feel and move with. You begin to see clearly that happiness is not a destination in the future, but a state you create when you stop abandoning yourself. And each time you choose to listen to yourself, each time you respect your own emotions, each time you dare to live a little more truthfully, you are changing your life from the roots, quietly, without display, but deeply and sustainably. Because when you choose yourself, you are not only changing how you live, you are changing the entire way you exist in this world.